Let me just review some of the things that these students, these in the encampments, that is, are saying. Of course, we often don't know who these students are. They're concealing their identities. I'm going to read to you now, and I just warn folks, this is not pleasant stuff, but these are the facts, and we have to tell the truth. This is just from last night at George Washington University. That's here in this town. They projected the students in the encampment there projected onto various buildings images of the United States flag being burned with the graphics, "Gaza lights the spark that will set the empire ablaze." They projected the following: "Long live the student intifada. Down with the settler state." That would be the state of Israel, I suppose. "Glory to the martyrs of Palestine." It's a jihadist slogan. "Stained with the blood of 44,000 Palestinians." That's last night at GW. Also at GW, they're now calling for beheading, the student encampment, beheading of individuals who support the state of Israel, including holding a people's tribunal where they're putting on trial, quote unquote, various members of their own board of trustees and calling for a guillotine. Here's Columbia University students on April the 20th, 2024. This is all public record. I'm reading this now. This is on, I guess it's X. Columbia University students yelling at Jewish students, and I quote, "Never forget October 7th. It will not happen. It will happen. Not one more time, not 5 more times, not 10, not 100, not 1,000, but 10,000 times. The 7th of October is going to be every day for you." The 7th of October, this is to Jewish students, is going to be every day for you, end quote.
Friends of Zeus podcast, Foz, whatever you want to call it.
Friends of Zeus podcast. There's another Foz podcast.
Yeah. And that's our email at yahoo.com. Tonight it's episode 167. We're going to let Mike run the show tonight. Be sure to check our last couple episodes. We did an interview the other day, or a couple interviews the other day with protesters for Palestine. And it was good. It's a little hard to listen to, but if you do actually listen to it, there's some good content to it. I was really proud of that one. Anyway, Mike, what are we talking about tonight?
So just kind of a follow-up with 166 and 164, the bourgeois jihadists. And it's kind of a natural thing to follow up with the last one from Blinken's house and the embassy. But and Zeus and I talked a lot that day, obviously, and I've just can't stop thinking about it.
I know.
And thinking about all the different things that are swirling around right now and kind of trying to get my head around it. And so this is just sort of a checkpoint episode. Kind of everyone can put their marker down on how they feel about certain things, I guess.
May 17th, 2024.
May 7th.
7th.
Yeah. And so the thing that I was thinking about is, when we did the bourgeois jihadist episode, which mainly dealt with these protests that are on campuses, that's kind of one thing. And then these other protests that are going on, like at Blinken's house and at the embassy, they kind of have a different feel to them. There's overlap between them. I mean, we asked the police officer about that, but they're definitely they have two different feels to it. And the one that we did with the interview where Zeus and I were walking around with Zaina and some of the other people that we talked to, there is a feel. We went into it kind of open-eyed or open-minded, but looking back on it, those people are very structured. They're very organized.
They're not organized. They said they weren't organized.
Right. The signage is all the same. What they say is the same. What they do is the same, which I would call like the tactics. One thing that I did not even notice this till I was editing it, is how many times they asked us who we were with. Sometimes within a minute, like the same people, they would say, "Oh, who are you with?" And we would say, and then like 2 minutes later, "So who are you with?" Almost like trying to catch us or something, which I thought was kind of interesting. And of course, everyone's filming us, which is fine. I mean, we're standing there looking like, a radio tower with all the stuff we're carrying around filming people. But it's a big difference between that and kind of what I'm seeing on these campuses with the younger people, where things tend to be a little more violent, tend to be a little more, not interested in talking. You have to talk to our organizer. We won't
Bullying
talk to you.
tactics.
Yeah, the bullying tactics and things like that. And it got me thinking, I was like, between all of this, somewhere there's the truth. We learned this past week about all the funding behind the scenes that's been going on for months, from like Soros and the Pritzker family and the
Yeah, Rockefellers.
Rockefellers
Yeah.
and all these people that are backing Biden that haven't just started funding this. I mean, immediately after October 7th and even before, hardcore funding this stuff, training people for months. And I think what we're seeing, what Zeus and I walked into, is kind of the result of that, like how they couch things, how they talk, the vocabulary, and all of that good stuff. I will say, and I think we kind of said it in the record, I do appreciate the time everyone spent talking to us at the embassy and at Blinken's house. I mean, I disagree with them 99%, I would say, but it's, dialogue is where everything starts, and it's important to view people as people and not like the other. I know we're looking at going to GW in the coming days. I don't think it's going to be the same same sort of experience down there. But the thing that I guess my main point I'm kind of driving to is, I kind of drew a parallel between what we're experiencing again right now and COVID, in that I almost feel like it's the same thing we were dealing with in the summer of 2020, with the George Floyd riots. All of this like protesting stuff that's been going on, the Black Lives Matter riots, all this stuff, the Antifa stuff. It's almost like everything going on with this Israel Palestine thing now. It's almost like another variant of the same virus, right? Remember in COVID, they had like COVID and it was like alpha, and then it was like beta, and it was like Omicron, and it was and like every 2 months, like we were like, oh man, we're okay. It's like, no man, this whole new variant's coming out. It just feels the same. Again, when I was downtown and looking at things in 2020, it's it has a very similar vibe to it. It's just like the subject is slightly different, but it's the
Right.
same people. It's the same techniques, although they're getting better at it. It's the same messaging. It's the same enemies that they're calling out. It's the same kind of demands that they're calling out. And I'm like, this is not. I feel like this issue going on in Israel right now, it's the topic du jour. But it'll be something else, when this passes. It was something else before this. And what we're dealing with is a much larger thing. This is not just about Hamas or Palestine or Israel or George Floyd.
It's a image that they're trying to present.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the volcano that erupts every once in a while. But
Well,
the
yeah.
underlying magma is the same.
Well, yeah,
to
but
me.
Mike, and that's what's so interesting about this. Well, what you just said makes me think two things. Now, the first one is, if you remember 2020, like you just said, it was the BLM riots and it was COVID. And the idea, the funding is to shift power. The idea was to make Trump less electable. That was there to destroy his presidency. So that's what it was for. It was for a shift of power. They didn't like the way it was structured with Trump. Let's get rid of Trump one way. And there were a lot of tactics they used, but those two things led to, an election that wasn't as favorable as maybe it would have been, because things were rolling pretty nicely for Trump for 3 years.
Yeah.
So that's what's interesting about this. The one thing it makes me think of, what's going to replace COVID? If they're going to use the same playbook, is it going to be this bird flu thing that we're starting to hear about
I
now?
was just thinking about that.
Or
Yeah,
is it something else, or will there not be a plague this time? Will it be something else?
it'll be the oncoming war coming to America or something.
Well, right, we'll see. But then the other thing it makes me realize, Mike, is if all of that happened to take Trump out, that means the same powers that be are okay with taking Biden out because he's in charge now.
Yeah.
So that would almost mean a concession to Trump, unless there's some other plan for what's going to happen to Trump.
Or it's let's get Biden in and then get rid of him after that.
Yeah, but this doesn't help Biden get in.
I can't imagine they want Kamala in there, though.
You know what I'm saying, Mike?
Yeah.
This does not help Biden.
No, it is. Yeah, I mean the law.
He's losing. He's going to lose a lot of the young vote. They don't support him at all. He's got blood on his hands, according to them.
Yeah, the lawfare stuff is hurting him, and you're absolutely correct. When we were talking at the at Blinken's house, and I was asking them, I said, "So what is it?
Well,
like,
right.
Why are you here? Like, what is it that Blinken's doing?" And
he's not.
Her point is that he's and when he went to Israel after 10/7, like 10/8,
right.
10/9, he was like,
He
"I
said,
come here as a Jew," you know.
Right.
And I'm like, there's people that look at Blinken that he's horrible. You know what I mean? Like he's selling out the Jewish people.
Because Biden still has the full support for Biden's basically saying we're still backing Israel. He does want them to maybe slow down a little bit. He wants to appease the left. He wants to appease the left, but right now the left, they literally have posters with Biden with blood on his hands. You guys, I think, even filmed one, or I saw one on a different video that you sent on the text thread today. You know, so I just wonder, you know, what's the plan? Like if they're all funding and conspiring to shift power away from Biden because he's going to lose support. Who do they want? Who's stepping in the last minute, or what's going to happen to Trump, or you know,
no,
are
you're
they?
Right. It's curious.
It's weird.
Like, who is? And again, I'm not sure that I buy into like the puppet master thing. I think now,
it's the same people funding it. It's the same
people funding it, but it's almost like a cage match right now. Like I'm wondering if his left flank is stepping up and making a power play.
One comes out,
and they're saying, you know, hey, we want this power. Like, you know, the party is running roughshod over everything. The globalists are trying to run roughshod over everything. And then the far leftist flank is like, wait a minute, we want a piece of this pie too. And the globalists are like, well, we'll take care of you. You're like, no, fuck you guys. We want. Who knows? I mean, it's like an internal little
weird.
war.
It's weird.
And everything is so blatant. It's like we don't even have to really read between the lines. Us as the older, you know, adults in the room in this whole societal mess. Like, for instance, like with our interview, the Zena, she was pretty frank, and she said some stuff that I did not expect to hear, like that she had Jewish heritage, that one death on either side is too much. What I'm seeing in all this is that we got two different types of protesters. Like these are the ones that we met are the ones that are a little more restrained, a little more capable of using their words well and knowing why they're there. Whereas I think when and if we go to GW, I think we're going to see a bunch of people that if we ask them simple questions, they
won't talk to you.
Yeah, it's like the wilding, you know. Well, it's like Lord of the Flies or something.
They
won't even talk to you. They'll say talk to the liaison.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is just ridiculous. For me, it's like if you're gonna be a part of a movement, you should be talking. You should be saying what's on your mind, and if you say something wrong, they'll kick you out. But I really have the feeling that there's just two groups that they're sitting out. They're the ones that they want in front of people in more casual situations, like where we were, and then there's the ones that they just want a hornet's nest, just poke it, and they're just fucking going back.
and I purposely when Zeus and I talked a lot about that episode in preparation for it and kind of what we were after because it could just be like crazy, right? And
Yeah.
we kind of wanted to focus, and the focus was, look, we're not going down there trying to convince anyone of anything. This isn't about Zeus and Michael's opinions on stuff. Like we just wanted to document it, like in a journalistic. We're going to go down there and just show someone that isn't here what it's like. Like that was literally what our viewpoint was. And I knew that our biases would come out because they would, and they do a little bit here and there. But the thing that, and we talked during the episode that really stunned me was, and I couldn't get over, is you're putting up 30 of these Palestinian flags across from the embassy. You've been down here for 3 months. You've got signs, you got sandbags, you got all this stuff, you got music playing, you've got a rotation, you got schedules, you got procedures of how to talk to people, and you can't answer some of the most basic questions that we were asking. Like, what would it take for you to feel like, okay, we're all done here, we can go home? And like, no one could really answer that. Or like, why are you out here? Why are you here? Like, what is the crux of the? They just couldn't answer that, and that was very suspect to me, and I really wasn't expecting that. I thought we would get all kinds of verbose response,
Right.
and that
And
yeah.
the one girl, Zaina, even basically was pretty snarky. She's like, look it up.
Yeah,
Look it
she's
up.
like, look it
Oh,
up.
I didn't get
It
a
was a little.
snarky vibe off
No,
of her.
she had a personality. She was like,
Yeah.
look it up. That's what she was basically telling Mike.
Right.
And Mike, said, okay, maybe you're right. It's the point's well taken. But she explained enough of it. What's funny that second interview with Zaina and the older woman, wearing the traditional garb, for Islamic women. There was, and Zeus, I give you a lot of credit because before you guys walked away, Zeus sat down, looked at them in the eye, and said, "Tell me how you feel about October 7th." And I was like, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
And what stunned me, it didn't stun me actually, but it was refreshing to hear one of them admit it. She basically said nothing about the atrocities, but she said you have to look at it in context. This has been going on for a long time. So there was no acknowledgement that that was terrorism. To her, it was just part of the war.
Part of the continuum, I think.
Part of the continuum, right?
Yeah.
That's
So there was no acknowledgement of the burning and the raping and the killing of children or the slaughtering of families in front of each other while they were alive.
Yeah.
No, nothing. Like there was no acknowledgement of, of anything. She just said, well, it's war, it's part of the continuum. It was an attack. It was an attack. That's all they see.
And from a rhetorical standpoint, just to jump in, is so weak. That's such a weak sauce. Again, I approach a lot of the stuff from like debate class type stuff, and that's why I was surprised they couldn't articulate why they're there. But if I was in a debate with her, which I wasn't because I was there to record and document, it's like, okay, well, if that's just part of the continuum, if that's your point, then what's happening right now in Rafah is part of the continuum.
It's part of the continuum.
Tough marbles. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, why are we here? What are we talking about that?
Right.
It's all just part of the continuum.
Yeah, war is hell.
Mike and I have talked a bit about this over and over. I give Zaina a great deal of credit. She went, I think, a little bit off script.
I thought she was.
And I
good.
was telling Mike, and I don't mean, if she happens to be listening to this, I don't mean this in a diminishing fashion. I feel like she is doing this, but she may have been on the fence right before, because she said a lot of things that I wanted to hear, like one death is too many. And she gave very clear, succinct. She was clearly educated and well spoken. I like I said, I actually liked her. She changed my perspective a little bit on these protesters, but again, I do realize that they're not the ones that we're really concerned with right now. We're concerned with the ones that are flooding our campuses and keeping kids from school. My big concern, a little bit off this, is if this shit starts happening in our high schools, which as of yet I haven't heard of it happening, I'm gonna start to get real concerned. Like that to me leans towards book burnings, 1930, what? You know what I mean?
Well,
It
yeah.
it's going to lend towards a bigger picture that I'm not necessarily going to be surprised by if it happens, but hopefully it doesn't happen. Because if it gets to the younger kids, damn, man, I'm
There's
going to
been
put my kid out of
walkouts
school.
and stuff like that. I mean, it's happened at my
Yeah,
kid's
but
high
I mean
school.
like this. I mean like
Really?
what's going on now.
Yeah, go ahead,
They,
Tom.
yeah, they had walkouts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they'll do like a day where they plan like a walkout, all kind of in solidarity for the cause.
Which
Really?
actually is pretty ingenious of the high schools because we'll give them their protest, but not on our campus. That's relatively.
But again,
intelligent.
the thing that is concerning to me, like if anyone wants to protest about anything, more power to you. The thing that gets my antenna going up is the normal stuff, like the fact that the media is all rowing in the same direction with this. The messaging is all the same, right? And it's like, where is this going? Like, and the thing is, and that's when I look back, I'm like, it's like COVID. It's not anything novel. This is not new. This is the same thing dressed
Just a
up in a
different
different
flavor.
coat. It's just a different flavor of the same thing we've been dealing with for 4, 6, 7, 8 years now.
Well, and
You
like
know?
we've said before,
And
or
longer.
maybe I have, is I always felt like COVID, however it began may have been organic, but what happened was a big sociological experiment on how much can we motivate with fear. And this is just a different fear where now I'm worried about this going on in my schools or my kids' school. I mean, that's a real fear. It's totally possible. And what do we do then?
Well, but we do know that the schools have already been captured, right? In this,
But I'm talking high school.
I'm
Is a
saying
different
high
level
schools have too. It's
Yeah,
just
the
it
high
hasn't.
schools, even the elementary schools. That's
Even
how
the
you ended up
elementary
in
schools.
Florida with all the gay porn in the friggin' school. I mean, because
Yeah.
I mean, no one noticed before, and then they were like, "Wait a minute, you guys are doing what?"
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking
Well,
like pronouns with the little third graders? Like that's what you're doing? You know
like,
what
why
I
are we
mean?
even talking about this? You know?
Right, right. That's part of the DOE, man. It has infiltrated the high schools, and it has infiltrated even
But
the middle school.
I'm talking about quasi-violent activism at our schools.
Are you talking
People
about the
blocking
walkouts? You're talking
people
about the
blocking my
walkout.
son from getting to his basketball game or shit
No,
like that.
I understand. No, Mike had said they've already co-opted the schools, so I thought we were talking about that. If you're talking about just the walkouts in the high schools, right, Tom? You were saying that that's happening now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
how
already
did that
happened.
happen? Like, what has there been a reaction? Like, what's your take on this stuff, Tom, that you've been seeing?
There wasn't much reaction to that. I know they had one early on, like right after October
I think
7th.
my oldest had one too. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the principal reached out to all the parents, let us know so that we could just be aware of it.
Hmm.
The thing that bothers me about these protests is, and Zeus was on it, about there's different types of protesters, and some of these are paid protesters. The ones on the college campuses, they're getting money, like up to $7,000 to participate in these protests.
Wow.
Kind of crazy. Yeah,
Wow.
because people are like funding them, paying them, giving them signs, giving them, all the supplies and everything. So they're getting cash. And there is a parallel with the COVID, like you were saying, because there's a big lie here about the genocide. There's no genocide from the Israelis on the Arabs. Yes, people are dying, it's war, but there's no intentional genocide. Everybody should understand what genocide is. It's not just some people dying in a war. It's like the Holocaust, where they're trying to wipe out an entire race of people. That's not happening.
Yeah, like Hamas
If
wants to.
anything, yeah, if anything is happening the other way,
Right.
because we know that Hamas and Iran, they legitimately want to wipe out all of the Jews and get them out of that area. They want Israel to no longer exist.
Right. They want the river to the sea.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
the thing that bothered me, there was some good good quotes about Biden. Megyn Kelly had a good quote about Biden and how he's responding to this. She said he's handling it as well as he handles going up the stairs, because he's going very gingerly and he could fall down at any moment.
Right.
The thing that struck me about Biden, if you listen to his comments a few days ago, he just said, this is what is violent protests or nonviolent protests and this and that. But nowhere in those comments did he say, I disapprove of these protests.
Right.
Nowhere in his comments did he say he wanted those protests to stop. And that struck me, because all he was just saying was that, this, if you trespass or if you break windows, that's not a peaceful protest. Yeah, we all know that.
Yeah.
So he's not really saying anything.
And he has to say that.
And he didn't come out against these protests the way they were happening, with people, the Jewish people on the campuses kind of being interfered with and harassed, and they can't get to their classes and things like that. That's what he needs to speak out against. And he kind of tried to equate it with Islamophobia, which is BS. That's the only thing happening right now, is the Jewish people are being harassed and they're at risk on their own campuses.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whataboutism of like, well, it's horrible that this is going on, but also Islamophobia. I'm like, okay, it's not true. The other thing is, Tom, to your point of not condemning it, wasn't that, I remember that was kind of a big theme in 2020 too. I mean, the elected officials, the Congress critters on the party side, they weren't condemning any of it. They weren't.
No.
I mean, Kamala Harris, our now vice president, was involved in a fund to
bail them out.
To bail them out.
That's
so,
true. And Biden said he was proud of the young people when he was referring to those riots.
Yeah.
Then that's all he said. He wouldn't condemn it at all.
Yeah, and Mitt Romney marched with them, and people were kneeling for them. I mean, it was just a mess.
Yeah,
and it's kind of the same.
Yeah,
it's kind of the same vibe. If you don't get the vaccine, you're the reason people are dying. If you don't hate Israel, you're the problem.
well, here's the thing, and again, not to put too fine a point on it, but just another way of explaining it. Like when we were at the embassy, and that lady at the corner that was like, "Well, I don't want to talk to you." Like, okay, you don't want to talk to me? Like, you're out here with fucking flags and signs, sitting here in a lawn chair on the sidewalk. And I'm coming up in good faith being like, hey, what's going on? And you're like, you don't want to talk to me? Like, so in other words, is the incentive to, in good faith, educate people, their fellow citizens, with this grave injustice that's going around on, and we just need to open people's eyes and, or is it, and I don't think that's what it is. That's what they want it to look like. But what it actually is a freaking chokehold on you to comply, right? It's I think what it really is trying to control behavior and trying to shame people into not talking and having these pictures of these, little kids and innocent kids that are injured and stuff like that, and to push people off of their points where they're like, wait a minute, on October 7th, 1,200 innocent people were slaughtered. Like in horrible, torturous ways. And now these people are the victims. Like I'm just saying, they didn't seem that they were there in good faith to me.
I think you caught her off guard, Mike. I know you said she's been there for 3 months, but probably nobody's come up and asked her any probing questions for that 3 months.
Maybe. I mean, that would explain it. I can't imagine.
I like how she looked you guys up on her phone.
I don't know.
The older lady.
No, the lady sitting on the corner. Yeah, the lady on the corner.
I don't know if it made it into the final edit, but Zeus and I were laughing because, like, when we crossed the street, I was like, man, she's probably like, those fuckers. Those assholes. Like, she probably looked this up. Because it was like the last episode posted that time was the bourgeois jihadist episode. So, like, if they looked this up.
But if they actually listen, they would
if they actually listen, yeah.
I mean, if they actually listen, they would at least see that I pretty much kept my same line of thought. I'm tired of big governments putting people in the middle and causing the deaths, using them as meat shields and all that. I've stuck by that. I still feel that way.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm not softened on these protesters, but I see a clear and significant difference between the type of protesters that we're seeing on the broad news versus the people that we met. I think probably they're a little bit older, which they were. They're probably
definitely older.
30s.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a bit more well spoken. They've got canned answers. My favorite thing, well, two things I want to talk about. The first thing that I thought was hilarious is they're like, this isn't organized. You can go talk to our organizer over there.
Yeah.
Which I was like, and I think I called them disorganized organized or something like that. The other thing, and I find this appalling, and this would be on either side. The one clear and significant difference that I see between what we saw in front of the Israeli embassy and what we saw where they were protesting is there was this 1990s abortion clinic vibe of you go by and there's this picture of a fetus being vacuumed out of somebody.
Yeah, Mike, actually, I think you said that on camera.
Yeah, he mentions it.
And that's you're right, Zeus. That was a great point, because the people that are putting up those dying kids on the street are the same people that would say that the pro-lifers are doing what they do in bad taste, showing like dead children. I mean, it's
the flip side of that is you go over in front of the Israeli embassy, nobody's there. Nobody's like, go Israel. Actually, in front of the Israeli embassy, right where, what was the kid's name that self-immolated?
Bushnell.
Yeah, there was actually a picture right where he did it of him. But as far as what you could tell the Israeli embassy put up or allowed to be put up, it was all pictures of these people that were kidnapped, not horrific, violent, bloody pictures. And let's say everything the pro-Palestine protesters saying is true, that's still inappropriate. It's appalling.
Well,
it's for shock. It's supposed to get your sensibilities weakened so that you feel closer to them somehow.
I think to have the pictures is fair, but then at the same time to say October 7th was part of the continuum, that's where I'm like I need a neck brace. I'm like getting whiplash on your okay, so this is serious, but what happened on October 7th? That's part of the continuum.
There's a difference because
how they value it,
because of what they value, which nationality they align with or which religion they align with, and that's why it's different. It's different because Israel is the dominant, superior power.
Right.
So as for the college kids, you're going to side with the oppressed because you're oppressed. And all the marginalized people in America are oppressed because capitalism is terrible, because everybody should have this. The rich should be taxed more. Like, it's all the same shit.
Yeah.
They're siding with the what they view as the more conquered people, the less, they don't have the America's backing. Like, no one talks about how billions of dollars have been poured into Gaza too for even just the last 16 years. And they've used it for nothing good. Their government is a terrorist organization. And a woman on the street in America literally said to you, oh, it's just part of the continuum. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't know.
It's funny because if you think about the history of the Jews, slavery in Egypt.
Oh, the most oppressed people,
just oppressed for, centuries after centuries and just chased out of different countries. And nobody's more oppressed than the Jews. But their guilt, the thing that they did, I was just going to say, the reason why they're guilty is because they're successful.
Right.
Despite all of the oppression, they overcame it. And that's what they don't like.
Yeah.
Right. It's not just the Jews. It's not Israel. I don't think it's just the topic of the day, Mike. They're the canary in the coal mine. They want to destroy Israel. They're chanting on these campuses, death to Israel, death to America.
Yeah.
And they're not just, you know, tearing down the Israeli flags, they're tearing down American flags too. And
Yeah.
what does that tell you?
And
It's
putting
not
stuff.
just about Israel and Gaza. There's a bigger picture.
They graffitied the World War One memorial up in New York, for crying out loud.
Who
Anything that's a bronze statue, if you're like a mush-headed 18-year-old, 19-year-old college student in America today, in one of these like elite schools, any bronze statue needs to be torn. Doesn't even matter who it is. Could be Benjamin Franklin.
could be
Could
he
be
could be the
Mahatma
bull
Gandhi.
in front of the
Right.
stock market.
It's a bronze statue, man.
Bulls
Get
are
out,
impressive, man.
get out
Hey,
the Sawzall. Yeah.
Guys, just I don't know if there was anything you wanted to say, Mike, but maybe moving the conversation forward since this is a week later.
Yeah.
You had mentioned tearing down the American flag, Tom. What do you guys think of what is now occurring, which is the counter protests? Not just the Jewish students showing up in some solidarity. You'd see a group of like 5 people with the Stars of David, and they would be surrounded and called Zionists. Now you've got what the media is just putting a big bow on all of them, and they're calling them the frat boys.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now
The
we
Sandman.
have
It's
now
Nicholas
we have
Sandman all over.
now
again.
we have the frat boys, right?
Yeah.
Because Tom, you mentioned tearing down the American flag, and you had that incident where the frat boys, which is basically a bunch of white boys, I mean, the college students, they come out. Clearly, they just had a keg at their fucking dorm. They're partying, and they basically hold up the American flag and say, "Nope, you're not coming near it."
And they
Yeah.
sing
And
the
it
national
worked.
anthem.
Yeah, right. Singing the national anthem and all that. And that's starting to happen on that, more than
Yeah.
one campus.
And
People
they're
are
going to
like,
be vilified.
Well,
yeah,
if you
of
look at the
course. 'Cause-
polls nationwide, I mean, the majority of people in America disapprove and disagree with what these protesters are all about. Most
right.
people are on the side of Israel in this war. Most Americans.
But Tom, at this point, and I wanted to ask you guys that question. At what point do your average American, like when do the photos of the dead kids start to break down American support for what's happening? Because right now, Tom, you're right. Most people disapprove of the protesters, but people have a heart. And at one point, aren't the people en masse going to say, okay, ceasefire time?
It's been eroding every day since October 7th. If you look at the polls, the numbers have been slowly going down with the
Right.
amount of people that now people are switching over slowly to the other side.
And you could have
Yeah,
predicted
hearts
it.
and
Pressure that
minds.
Zeus talked about, they're putting social pressure on people to make that change.
Right.
Yeah, the pictures are very effective on people who are living their lives. I mean, God bless them, who are just experiencing this around the edges. Incredibly effective. But I mean, when October 7th happened, I remember, I don't know if it may have been on our show a couple days later, but I remember it being kind of talked about like, man, this worm's gonna turn, man. They're gonna make it the other way. I mean, within like 48 hours, there were people like, here comes the campaign to make Israel look like the aggressor here. I
Yep.
mean, you could see it coming. It was purposeful. I mean, you've got people in our media who, again, we don't have a media. It's the Democrat Party. It's the party media wing, whatever, who talk about Israel indiscriminately bombing in Gaza. That has not happened. No one is talking about indiscriminate bombing. I mean, again, this whole idea of Israel can't win. They cannot be allowed to win. Again, it's the oppressor thing. And I don't know, they're just going to the wall with it. It's just blowing my mind. And you never hear stories like, where's our media with stories from within Israel? Why is it that I turn on like World News Tonight and I don't see a story of 40-year-old Israeli woman who lost 2 sons in Gaza in the last 3 months? Like, why do I never see those stories? Right? If we're just being objective,
Right.
if war is hell, if we're all about saving lives, if like what Zaina said, if one life lost is too much, let's go back to that episode that we did after October 7th. And the title was, Where Are the Anti-Hamas Palestinians? I'm still asking that question because the Al Jazeera poll shows that 87% of Palestinians support what happened on October 7th.
Mhm.
So
I think
what
I
is
think
it?
that
I mean,
makes
are
it.
we?
I think that makes
I
it
told Zeus on
easy
the
for
phone.
us
I
to.
don't think I said it on this podcast that I had an experience right after October 7th. And I can't get into the details because there's no way to change the names so
Yeah.
that to protect the innocent here.
Yeah.
But I will say that I had a conversation with a Palestinian business owner, and this was the week after.
Nice.
And this was actually the bombing had started. The bombing of Gaza had started. So whatever that timeline is, it had just happened. And he had like tears in his eyes, and it didn't need to be said, you know what I mean? But he said something like, "You see," and he gestured toward the bombing of Gaza. He said, "We stand up for our freedom once, and they drop the hammer back down." So he
Mm,
basically was putting October 7th into the continuum,
yeah.
just like the lady you guys interviewed. And
Yeah.
this was a guy with a successful business in the United States for about 30 years. Okay. He's been here that long, but he's Palestinian. That's his people. He's probably got family back there.
Man.
And he basically called October 7th them standing up for their freedom just once.
Wow.
And that tells you everything. That
Yeah.
was a week after. Now, obviously, that's an anecdote, right? But it sort of backs up the survey you're talking about. I just met one of the 80%,
Yeah.
And
you know.
and
Yeah.
if they had bombed Israel in that concert, whatever, and just decimated them, sure, tragic, but rape
Yeah.
and
It was a psychological attack.
oh,
Right.
absolutely, it was for I hate to say it this way, but it was pretty smart.
No,
They
it
got
was also
exactly what.
pure terrorism because they went after civilians.
They went after civilians, and I'm wondering, was it? And I just thought of this, Jack. To your point, from what the guy you're talking about, was it to scare Israelis or was it to rally Palestinians?
It was to rally the troops.
That's dark, man.
Yeah.
That's some dark shit right there.
Well,
For
we
real.
know
Yeah,
what they're capable of, whoever they are.
Yeah.
Whoever they are.
I mean, there's nothing. Look, I mean, I feel it. I'm a patriotic American. I believe in the Constitution. I support Western civilization. And, when people attack it, I feel a visceral desire to defend it, right? So human nature, we're all human beings. There's no, we're the same animal all over this planet. So it's an easy sell if you are a 12-year-old boy growing up in Gaza and people are like, you go to school, who you trust, your parents send you there, and the teacher's like, do you see all this? Do you hear about your grandfather that lost his orchard or all this that happened in 1940? It's all the Jews, man. And they are going to kill you and your family. And they just pump this into them. That's why I said when people are like, I don't blame these people. I'm like, trust me, man. I get it. I get it big time. I mean,
Right.
that's
And
where
also,
the fanaticism comes from.
well, yeah, but that's just it, Mike. The fanaticism and the education, because that's what we're talking about. It's an education.
And that's what we're seeing here now.
That right.
In our
But
country.
the reason for the fanaticism is that this war has been going on for a long time. This land is disputed. The Palestinians who are in Gaza, basically were put there, right? I mean, they lost and they were given Gaza and it was all negotiated, but they don't have the rest of Israel and they feel like they're entitled to it and that they were pushed down by Israel. So
Yeah.
if you're in this trapped little, because they do consider themselves trapped, like in an encampment, like
Egypt won't let them out. Yeah.
like Escape from New York, even though a lot of them are given work permits to go there. And, if somebody wanted to live there, assuming they didn't have any terrorists in their background or whatever, presumably there's a process for that, just like we have an immigration process. Whereas Jews can't go into Gaza, You know, they can't. Why would you want to? And that's another thing about October 7th. A lot of the people who were slaughtered, who lived near that border, they were considered leftists. They were supporters of
point.
Hamas and Gaza. Like, they were sympathizers. They weren't hardline Netanyahu right wingers. They were like hippies. They were like the hippie leftists of America, but in Israel.
The
And
music festival was like Woodstock 99, man.
Right, exactly. I mean, these poor people were like, hey, they're our Palestinian brothers and sisters, and we should all be together and kumbaya. And what did they get for that attitude? They got slaughtered.
They got a shovel in the chest.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
that was for you, Zeus.
I mean, the whole thing is effed up. But again, back to the education point, they really do feel like that they are oppressed and that they have been gypped in the worst way as a culture. And so that hate is there. That hate's not going away.
And this is one reason why we well, I don't know how long it's going to last now, but it's one reason why we separated church and state, so that you could hopefully have a clear line between.
No, what do you mean church and state?
Well, like, for instance, religion in schools. So in Gaza,
that's worked out.
I guarantee. No, this is what I'm saying though. In Gaza, I'm sure they're just preaching the hate the Jews in school. It's just everywhere in their lives involved.
Right. But it's not just religious though. Like I said, it's historical, it's political, it's holy crap. There's a wall between us and this country and the sea on the other side, and we're in this encampment. We are trapped. Israel controls everything that comes in and out of here, and we're an oppressed people because we were put here. You know what I mean? So they're raising their kids with that history, and that's what.
Yeah, I mean, there's high school age kids right now, and in the last few months and before October 7th in Gaza, that are like Patrick Swayze, C. Thomas Howell. I mean, it's like the Wolverines, it's Red Dawn. I mean, it's like you got that's, again, we're all human beings. That is how they feel. That's where they're coming. So you're not going to just sit down and be like, let's sit down and have this conversation and debate this, because when you're 17 years old, you're killing shit. You know what I mean? That's why, like, Zaina, we could talk to Zaina. You can talk to older people. But when kids are that age, and self-included, whatever. I mean, not that I started a civil war or anything, but Jesus, that's why that age is targeted by
they're more
the Soroses and the Gateses and the Bidens and the party. That's why, because they are malleable. You know, we were
combustible.
And combustible.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah, and it's weird, like going back to the earlier point about maybe looking for a shift in power by creating civil disorder. 2020 was all about the anger of BLM, right? And the fear of COVID. And now we've got this movement, which is stirring up all this young anger on campuses. And now you have anti-protesters that are looking to get into a fight. So you have the Proud Boys, only now they're the frat boys. Where is the fear going to come from? Like, that's when are Americans going to be afraid? And that's why I still predict some kind of either attack that's going to change a lot. The federal government will be able to assert its muscle, like this is an emergency. Like, I'm wondering if it'll be like this, the sleeper cells are given a green light. I'm still afraid of that happening. You know, I don't want that to happen, you know, but some other shoe's got to drop.
Something's going to wash this off the front page. There is another act between now and November the 5th.
Exactly.
This is not going to continue all the way. I mean, it may continue, but it's not going to be the headlining thing, because as human beings, we get bored. It's like, oh man, they're just talking about, there's another picture of a dead kid.
It's going to be a fear tactic. It's going to be something.
Yeah, it's going to be something.
How does it end though? Because what they're protesting on the campuses, I don't see how that's going to be a solution. You know, river to the sea, basically wipe out Israel, is what they're saying. I don't see how that's going to work in reality. I think it's got to, number one, Hamas has to surrender. The hostages have to be turned over. I think it would be over immediately if those
if
two
they
things
did.
happened.
And-
Hamas surrender, hostages turned over.
Yeah, they don't
That would
want
be
that.
the end of it.
Yeah, they don't want that. But you're right, Tom. I mean, that is if you're arguing this from the Israeli side, that's what they want. And that's why the whole idea, like Jack said, of calling it a genocide is so ludicrous, because a genocide infers that they want to get rid of those people from the planet. If Israel wanted to do that, they could have done that 30 years ago. You know, I mean, they could probably drop 2 bombs and make Gaza a memory tomorrow.
And they
if
wouldn't be
wanted to.
warning people that they were about to drop those bombs, which
Correct.
they've
Right,
been
they
doing
have been
the whole
doing
time.
that.
So it's
Right.
not to call it a genocide is it's purposely rhetorically inflammatory, and it's a catchword that people can put on a sign. You know, it sounds good or whatever, but it's really, if people are espousing that, they're really, you talk about not arguing good faith. They're not arguing good faith, because that's not the story. It's a story, but it's not the story. I mean, speaking of hostages, and I'll just mention this real quick. These 5 gentlemen behind me, these are U.S. citizens, some dual citizens, that are, as far as we understand, possibly still alive in Gaza, that were taken hostage on October 7th. And I looked up their names, and I've never heard their names before in my life. Like, you know, our president isn't talking about them. But these are Americans, most of them born in the United States, that were over there in the kibbutzes, you know, either because they have family there or they were at the festival. I think 4 of them were at the festival. And they're U.S. citizens, man. I mean, there was a time, I'm old enough to remember a time in this country where if you effed with an American citizen overseas, like, that was not good.
Right.
Your country would be bombed, you know? And so I don't know how we've gotten away with that, both in Afghanistan, what happened over there, our 3 soldiers that we lost from the Houthis bombing them a few months ago, and it's like, that's just a blip, you know? We don't even know who those people are. I'm saying that's disturbing, you know? I mean, we are just projecting weakness everywhere. And when people are like, oh, you talk about projecting weakness, you know, you're being a warmonger. I'm like, no, it's quite the opposite. When you project weakness, you are
You
provocative.
invite war.
You invite war onto your shores and onto your people. So, and I'm just, look, I have been following this stuff. I did not know we had 5 U.S. citizens that were still listed as hostages until like a week ago.
Oh, I knew they were there.
I didn't know how many
it's
there
not
were.
mainstream news. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's sad.
Yeah, but they don't highlight that. And as
They don't
far as
highlight it. I've never seen these guys in
not
my
only
life.
that, I mean, Afghanistan, you know, there are still Americans over there
100%.
living under the Taliban if they haven't been killed already.
Yep.
And that's not, so talk about projecting weakness. I mean, yeah, we're just doing that, you know. I mean, in every country right now.
And when we say projecting weakness, I'm not standing here like, we got to be the strong. I'm like, because again, and not to put too fine a point on it, and Tom just said it too, and then we have to restate it, it is provocative to project weakness. It is the start of violence when you project weakness. Peace through strength. Walk softly, carry a big stick. Yeah. Good
Ukraine
point,
didn't
Tom.
happen until Biden got in there and showed how weak he was.
Yeah. Anyway, well, listen, guys, I don't mean to grind this into the ground. I want to do a follow-up on 166 and 64, and Tom, I mean, I'll leave it with you. I mean, I'd love to just hear anything else that you have to put in, because I haven't heard from you in a while.
Not much more. I mean, I'm following this the same as you guys are, and I don't know what the end game for Ukraine is either, since I just mentioned that there's no plan on how they're going to get out of there. other than, I mean, just giving them billions and billions of dollars year after year. But how does that end?
That's a good question. How does it end? Like, what are we doing? Like, can anyone, like the lady sitting on the corner across from the embassy, is there anyone in the government I can go to and be like, okay, so what are we doing?
Yeah, what's our end game?
What's our
what's
end
it gonna
game?
take for you to pack it up and leave?
Yeah, what's going to
And you can't give us an unrealistic goal, like wipe out Israel and it'll be all Palestine. That's not going to happen.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry, I was just going to say that as far as what would make these people go home or get the college kids to stop, well, the police are getting them to stop now, but it's going to pick up again in the summer. This isn't over, despite the arrest.
Yeah,
but I think with the people like the lady on the corner, I don't think that they as Americans, as sympathizers, I give them the benefit of the doubt, Tom, that they don't want Israel wiped off the map. What they want is a ceasefire right now. What they want is a two-state solution. I don't think every American protester is saying wipe out Israel, and they can't be.
River to the Sea on any
No,
of the
I know that,
signage?
but I don't think half those college kids know what that means.
I know. Well, they don't, but the people that are giving them the signs, they know what it means.
Sure they do. No, sure they do. I'm just talking about your average American Palestinian flag waving person. I don't think they all want Israel wiped off a map. I think they
just want
death
an
to
end
Israel.
to it all.
No, some of them are. I just said I don't think that every American protester wants Israel wiped off the map. I just don't think
some of them
that.
just want the paycheck.
They know, and they want they'd settle for a ceasefire at this point and work it out. I mean, they can't all be this fervently.
No, there'd be much violence in the streets. My concern, and this is kind of going back to what you were saying before I stepped away, is I'm worried about another. I mean, you know, school shootings are the in thing. Something like that happening. Another drastic, violent attack in the U.S. is going to get us involved. And I was thinking about it, and like, I don't know enough about this, the history of this, but what I do find a little sad is that the October 7th was like our 9/11 for
them.
Sure. I would say that was probably the largest body count that they had in one single act.
Yeah.
Very much like 9/11.
Yeah.
And people rallied around the United States. Everybody felt bad for us. I mean, this is also maybe the news that we were being fed, but I do believe that the world really had our back on that. And here we are just
except in that part of the world.
Except in Gaza.
But my point being is
them celebrating 9/11.
Israel,
yes, that's right.
Israel is had their 9/11, and there's nowhere near the support. And you know, the one thing that Zaina said that I wasn't offended by it, but she's like, this is like 75 years of this, and I'm like, in that somehow justifies rape and killing of babies. Like sure, full on battle between war, battle age
armed combatants.
people. Yeah, that I get. That's fine. They're going in, they know what they're doing. There are willing participants on the other side. But what breaks my heart on both sides is kids dying. Man, that's fucking just so screwed to me. My biggest concern is we're gonna have like a kid walk into a school of a certain background and do some real damage, to people, and it's gonna get real ugly real fast. I mean, I'm not worried about World War III. I still think that's going to be done more with information and money than anything. Nobody raises all that money for themselves only to destroy the world so they can't spend it.
My concern is with the party, and when I talk about the party, just in general, not just in the U.S., but just this whole leftist, Marxist, fascist.
Yeah, like remember Lena said that back on the I forget what her name was, but the girl that got killed in Iran. She even said that the where all the problem was coming from in Iran was also the left. So
I just have this feeling that, like, we have this podcast, we talk about stuff, we go down, talk to people, hey, we're just trying to check this out, operating in good faith. There's a part of me that thinks that the people that are behind this, they're just driving the train right into the wall. Like, in other words, that's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else, like this conversation we're having, it's just us trying to rationalize it. But I mean, that they're taking, it's like Runaway Train with John Voight and what's his face. They're just driving the thing right off the cliff, man. And all the stuff we're talking about is just like window dressing. Like,
Well,
Yeah, no, but it's not, because if they're trying to drive the train off the cliff, the people that are making all these moves, whoever they are that we talk about, right? Or these the
Illuminati.
people, or even like if you're talking about the pawns, like the boots on the ground, like the college kids and the whatever, or the people in the bureaucracy, they want to drive the train into the ground. But it's people who see this, people like us, people who are getting a message out, people like certain writers and publishers and podcasts that see this, and that they see this. We talk about it because we want people to be aware of it, because maybe if more people are aware of it, then it can be combated ideologically, that it can be debated on the points, that maybe this train, maybe we won't let them run it into the ground. Maybe there will be the enema needed in Washington, D.C. for starters. You know what I mean? I mean, if you want to believe we're just howling at the moon and that there's no hope,
I don't want to believe it,
because I used to be that guy, and now I feel a little optimism.
Yeah.
Like I feel maybe
Yeah.
that the worm might be turning.
I'm getting
I don't
closer
know.
to that. Maybe we're switching places, Jack.
Yeah, I guess.
Well, we did that episode on being optimistic, and I will say this, Tom, and you don't have to, but if you could make a thumbnail where the Friends of Zeus are like Spider-Man on the front of the metro with the webs going out, like trying to stop the train before it goes off.
Right.
I don't know. I don't even know how I would even start to do that, but if you got an idea, I think that would be a great thumb for this episode.
Put Zeus's head on what's his name? Spider-Man body.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that would be great for this episode.
Yeah, I don't know when it ends. I'd like to have some period in the remainder of my life that is relatively peaceful, or just we're not involved so much.
Man.
That's my thing is, man, the last 20, 30 years have been pretty tumultuous. Oh, I'd say since 9/11, everything's just kind of gone squirrely. Like as soon as the 90s ended, they were like, well, we've had the best decade in the world.
Freaking 90s, man.
Things up.
Yeah.
You ever listen to Pearl Jam, Zeus? I think you'd like them.
I like
They
them.
have a new song, a new album out now.
Really? I did
haven't
not
heard
know
it.
that.
Yeah, Spotify.
Oh my
promoted
God.
it.
You know what
Holy
though?
shit.
I'm just about ready to not listen to anything by Roger Waters again. Was it you that sent that link?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike
What a
sent that.
dork,
That
man.
really, I mean, I've always liked Roger Waters and
His
I
music.
Guess, I guess he was kind of saying he was an anti-Semite back with the wall, but that wasn't the vibe that I got at the time. I thought it was more anti-Semitic stuff.
Well,
But,
yeah,
oh boy, he's on board. He's like, I'm so proud of you. What the fuck, man?
One quick question, Tom, just to clarify, because you said that you think you're switching places with where Jack was. So are you trending more pessimistic lately? You
Yeah,
are? Okay.
I think things are.
You don't have hope for November, Tom?
It's going to be. It would be a miracle, I think,
Yeah.
if Trump won the election. I
Really?
think it's the chances are
Wow.
going down and down. I don't believe the polls.
You don't
Mhm.
believe the polls? Okay.
No. The polls
I
are
mean-
screwed. When they started with that first one from CNN, where they manipulated the people that were in the poll so that it skewed Republican, they're doing stuff like that with the polls, and a lot of people aren't being
Okay.
captured in the polls, like all these newly registered newcomer voters.
Oh, yeah, without IDs,
Yeah.
without
Yeah,
photo
like,
not
IDs.
saying,
in
like
these
maybe
polls.
there's kind of they're trying to pull off a societal false positive. Oh yeah, Trump is close, and
think
getting
so.
people to rest on their laurels a little bit.
I guess that's what they're doing.
Well, and they
because I
also
just
just
don't buy it.
they've imported like over 10 million new Democrat voters that are getting SSN numbers for work permits, and they
Right.
don't need a photo ID to even register to
Right.
vote. So yeah, they're stacking the deck. They're
But
stacking the
legally
deck.
speaking, are they allowed to vote?
Well, I don't know. No,
Who's going to
legally,
stop
no,
them?
but
But
they can register and be able to register to vote without photo ID. They just and the Social Security Administration, they were publishing those numbers. It's called like the HAVA numbers, HAVA, or the HAVV numbers, and they were tracking them by state. I saw this on I think it was on Crowder. And now what I've learned is now the SSA is no longer going to publish those numbers. That apparently the administration
yeah,
said
we don't
no,
need that anymore.
no, we don't
We
need
got,
that
we're too big.
anymore.
Oh, here's one thing, and I'd like to say you heard it here first on the Friends of Zeus podcast, but I don't know because maybe someone else thought about it, but I haven't heard anyone say this. All the stuff you've always heard, or at least I have, going back to like Buchanan's book, Death of the West, like 20 years ago, where he was like, all this illegal immigration is because the party wants to turn them into voters so they can vote in the part. I think it's much simpler than that. I don't think it's to turn them into voters. It's what they did with the census like two
Oh, sure.
censuses ago, where they get counted, and so the representatives breakdown in Congress
Ah,
is
yeah.
determined by that.
No,
Because
we
if you
talked about that,
we
Mike.
did
Absolutely.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Because if you have like more reps, I mean, New York was hemorrhaging people,
Hmm.
and so you backfill them. You already know it's a Democrat heavy state.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, I forgot.
I wanted to mention one other thing. Mike sent out a video, was it today or yesterday, with this Israeli guy.
Hmm.
And he
Yeah.
was like, it was awe-inspiring.
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah,
I'll
I've
link
got
that
that.
to this.
I've got that pulled up still. His name is Rudy Rockman.
yeah,
Yeah.
I want
I've
us to
seen a lot of his stuff.
put a link at the end or something.
I'll put him in the
That guy
comments.
needs to be seen.
Well, I'd like to get some other opinions. Like, I don't know. I mean, it seems cool to me, but like, is he? I just want to get some other people's views on what he's saying. I mean, it seems reasonable. What were you saying,
Right.
Tom? You said you've watched a lot of his stuff.
Yeah,
or-
he's on like the Facebook Reels videos all the time. I see a lot of his stuff. He's one of those man on the street. He goes out and
Mhm.
talks to people and tries to.
Do you have an
talk
opinion
about
on
the
him?
Israeli
I
Arab.
mean, so if we go to GW, I mean, I think
When?
I established when
I mean, I'm going. You can come with me. Or
I'm
not.
going with you because you need
Okay.
protection.
I know, man. I'm soft.
but-
Good
I'm
luck,
like a little
guys.
flower, man.
Well, no, I'm like
need
a
someone
run
to
to
give me
the
a
fire
hug.
guy.
Yeah.
Like if I'm at a party and they're like somebody's got a gun, I'm probably up there and in it. And that's what I liked about this guy is he was like, I'm not backing down. I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say. He kept it peaceful, did all that stuff. That's why I'm a little concerned about going to GW because I'm just afraid somebody's gonna say or do something, throw a bottle of water at me or something.
Oh boy.
Relatively innocuous.
No, we're
I'm
gonna keep it
start throwing
professional,
things.
man. We're gonna go
Mhm.
there with the same feel we had at the embassy and Blinken's
Yeah,
house.
Yeah,
and-
good luck. Good luck
yeah.
finding anyone that will talk to you.
Yeah, I
because
don't think
from
we're gonna find anyone.
all of the videos I've seen of someone from the press trying to interview the college students, they'll all say, "I don't want to talk to you. Talk to the organizer. Talk to the media liaison." Like I think you sent a video out, Mike, on the text thread where there was this kid, young man, journalist, and he got some people to talk to him. But they said they were really there to support the protesters. Like they were sort of vague about,
what
really
they were
being,
even.
they weren't really fired up.
They
But a
hadn't
lot
gotten
of
their
the,
can of answers yet.
what's that?
I said they hadn't gotten their can of answers yet.
Well, right. Or they're being told just you're not to speak for the party. You need to just, tell them you're not speaking to them.
I'd like to think I've got the charm that I'll be able to get somebody to talk.
Oh yeah, you might. Good luck. I mean,
And
I hope it works out, and I hope you don't get in a fight. But
We're
Mike, if
getting
he
a new
gets
microphone too.
Mike,
Yeah.
if Zeus gets in a fight, make sure to film it because we're gonna want to air it.
Oh yeah, no, it'll be fantastic. And we're not looking for any problems, man. Look,
I
I'm
no,
know.
no,
I'm
no,
too
no, I'm not.
old. I'm too
I'm saying
old
that
and
if they become violent, I'm not going to stand there and take it at that point.
That's what I'm saying.
The one thing that I also wanted to mention, and I'm surprised you didn't mention it, Jack, was when I was talking to her and she gave me her answer about October 7th. I was like, yeah, but what about the violence? And just crickets. Did you notice
Yeah.
that? Yeah, just
Well,
complete
yeah,
crickets.
her whole answer was pretty cold. I mean, that's what I
Mhm.
was saying. I got out of it. You know, it's just part of the thing. This is the thing. You know, but
So we're gonna get a decent microphone, maybe another camera. If people want to contribute, they can send send us some money at Friends of Zeus at Yahoo. And Jack may go to Columbia. I don't know. I mean, maybe Tom will head over to George Mason. Maybe not. I
no,
don't know.
no.
I don't know.
Oh,
But we're gonna
Well,
get out
I mean,
there.
Jack, do you
well,
think you could sit down with this guy and
okay.
ask him some questions and tell him it's for the
Oh
podcast?
yeah, no, I wouldn't. It's kind of it's a personal situation. I wouldn't
Yeah,
do that.
too
Yeah, no.
close.
Okay.
Too close.
And just to kind of anecdotal here before we sign out. My son, my oldest son, graduated college this weekend, and
Congrats.
so
Congrats,
thank
man.
you.
That's awesome.
Yes, thank you very much. He's awesome. He's great. He did excellent. You know, 4.0 student. He's fantastic.
Jeez.
Shout out to
Going into
Jacob out
psych too,
there. I
right?
know you
Shout out to
watch. I
Jacob.
hope you
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah.
Anyway, so congrats to my son. But the point is they had the commencement, the final, ceremony with the keynote speaker and the honorary degree. That was actually held at Fenway Park, which was
Oh,
where the
wow.
Red Sox play. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a really amazing experience to see that. And I just to note, since we're talking about this, he's a student, he's graduated now from a very prestigious school in Boston, and there were protesters
Mm.
at the commencement. There were people waving Palestinian flags. The young lady who was the student representative, the best student in the school, what is it, valedictorian, I guess
Valedictorian.
is the
Yeah.
word I'm trying to get. She in her speech acknowledged in a very negative way what's going on in Gaza and that there needs to be a ceasefire in her speech.
Wow.
And she's like, yes, I went there. A young man tried to rush the stage wearing the keffiyehs scarf or whatever it's called. And there were chants and, there were loud voices. The cops made their presence known. One of the deans of the school trying to introduce the recipient of the honorary degree. He's just standing there while these people are all screaming. And so she begged them, she implored, we respect your point of view, but please don't disrupt the ceremony. All of your parents are here. It was sort of like embarrassing, but
Yeah.
I mean, and then they quieted down. I'll give the youngins a little credit. It ended without any incident.
Additional. Yeah.
Right. So, but I just figured I just wanted to say that
Interesting, man. And that was within
anecdotally
the last week or
that I
two.
witnessed it.
Wow.
And no, it was really something. It really was. It's kind of shocking, but maybe it shouldn't have been. I mean,
There was a
it's
big
college.
cheer, like when they got escorted off the stage, wasn't there?
What's that?
There was a big cheer from the audience when those protesters got escorted off, right?
Not
That's what
really.
I heard
It
on
kind of just died down from what I remember. I mean, it just seemed like the chanting stopped. Like the police
I thought it
came
was the
out.
Fenway. Maybe it was a different location, but
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
happened at
maybe.
other
Oh,
graduations.
sure,
It's
sure.
like
Yeah,
ubiquitous.
yeah. My other son attends another college in Boston that made the news because of their protests. So yeah, it's a thing. It's just a thing. One other shout out, if I may. I don't know if we gave him a plug, but we definitely should have. Mike and I appeared as guests. We represented the Friends of Zeus podcast on another podcast called the It Could Be Worse podcast. I think I have.
Fantastic.
And
Yeah.
yeah, the host name is Josh.
Yes.
Josh
He's got
Perry.
Josh Perry. He's got a really good podcast over there, and I just wanted to say thanks, Josh, for having us on. And we've actually had Josh on the show before. We'll have him back at some point
Definitely.
too. But anyway, go check us out over there. It's a good podcast.
It's a good podcast, and Josh is really good, and he's working hard, man. He's putting out stuff almost every day.
And he's about the chillest. He's about the chillest guest we've ever had on.
He's fantastic.
That Southern drawl.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, well, what do y'all think about this?
I don't know if it's Michigan.
No, it's not Southern. It's Michigan.
Yeah, it's Michigan, man.
It sounds Southern to me,
Midwest.
Yeah.
One last
Mid-Atlantic,
observation.
Yeah.
And
right. Well, Mike,
where...
do you guys have any more thoughts? I'm sorry, Zeus.
No, I'm done. Zeus can wrap up unless Tom or you.
And this is really exemplified by Desiree's stance in a lot of these things, because she's a lot more blasé about things that we get a little more heated about. And something I was thinking about is we're in the heart of it, like everywhere around, like the perimeter of the US, people are a little more heated about these things. I think as you get more into the middle of the country, I think that they're like a little don't care as much. And what made me think about it is I just went and saw that movie Civil War, which chef's kiss, fucking great movie, gotta see it. But they kind of touched on that, is like as you're going through like West Virginia, Ohio, more rural areas, people, they're just like pretending shit's not going on. And I don't know, it was just an interesting thought. Florida, not a super highbrow state, Georgia, but they're all in this because it's in their realm. You know what I mean? You get further in and suddenly people are like, I wonder what's going to happen on Americans Got Talent this week,
see, I get a different vibe from the Midwesterners like Josh and the Florida people. I think that they just
Florida people would be more
I think they are very opinionated about what's going on. They just do it quiet, like they're very laid back about it, but they're affected by it. Like I don't get the sense that Josh is non-political. Like he's got opinions.
He's Michigan. He's up along a
he
border.
Cares, man. Look, he cares. That's why he's doing the podcast. That's why it's so good. He is passionate. He is passionate.
I think a lot of those people are the people that like to hunt and like to just take care of their kids and go to work in their pickup and come home. Those people are very opinionated about this stuff. I mean, who do you think's going to the Trump rallies? It's those people. It's the Midwesterners. It's the people on the farms. It's those people. Or otherwise, Trump wouldn't have a shot, and he wouldn't have won in 2016. I don't think he would have.
All right, fair enough. I just feel like they're not inundated with it as we are. I think we're a bit more hypersensitive to it.
He probably wouldn't have won in 2020 either.
Fair enough.
Right. I got you, Mike. I got you.
All right, everybody.
I heard what you said. Yeah,
Man,
no, it's definitely no. We have been on for nice. We've been on for a while. So I think it's time to wrap things up. If you guys do too, let's do that.
Take care, everybody.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.
Hello. We were just we have a podcast. We're just like documenting stuff down here. We talked to your friend too. And she had a good answer, but what would be your why you're here? Like, what's your like 1 or 2 sentence explanation for somebody that's like, what are you guys doing sitting out here?
What's your podcast?
Friends of Zeus.
What's that about?
Everything. We've been doing it for like 3 years. I mean, we welcome you to. We need more followers.
We'd love to have somebody on.
Yeah, we'd have a guest on in a second, but it's just a private. We have like 200 subscribers. But anyway, we just wanted to document all this.